Okay, is it starting? Hi. So, I'm Ashley. I'm the Macroeconomics tutor. Thank you for joining me. The challenge in the link, I'll be doing the single player on live, so you kind of like just see my process. I'll explain a bunch of things. Have a chill time. It'll be fun. I'll give it until 5:05 Central, and then we can get started. Hope everyone's having a great day. I'm just saying, this is a little awkward, but it's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna thrive. You see the coins on the screen. Isn't that great? Have the single player game set up right here. Again, you'll see my setup. Thinking and stuff. And then we have an FRQ at the end if we have time. We also have the website. And yeah, the website is in the live chat. Otherwise, it'll also be in the description. You can see it there. All 6 units of macroeconomics is also out. So you can look at my notes. The study guide will be out hopefully on Saturday. Next week on Wednesday, probably the latest, but it should be done by Saturday. And yeah. Again, just wait a few minutes and then we'll get started. Then again, you guys can always jump in. I don't even know if you started the challenge yet, you're probably ahead. We can get started. And yeah, hope you have a great time. This is great. Ask any questions in the live chat if you have any questions. And yeah. So the first question is, how does scarcity apply to the product possibility curve? So, sorry, that's really loud. But basically, so economic growth can't be that, well, technically emissions, right? But like, trade-offs, because when you look at it, you're comparing 2 different goods, and it's showing like if you produce one good, what do you give up if you're producing the other, if you don't produce the other good, and you're just trying to find a balance between utilizing your resources properly. So that's opportunity cost and trade-offs, which yeah, that's what the product possibility curve shows. So, oh, is the sound still too loud? Sorry about that. So, in what situation would it be best not to trade? So, it would be the same opportunity cost, because when one nation has the absolute advantage over another nation, it's still good to trade because there'll still be like a less opportunity cost. Even if you can produce more altogether over another nation, trading still lowers that opportunity cost of producing goods. And then comparative advantage is just when one nation has a lower opportunity cost and another has a higher opportunity cost. When you trade, you always lower that opportunity cost of producing. But if they have the same opportunity cost, then basically you don't really hopefully I fixed the sound. Where was I? When there's the same opportunity cost, basically you're just like not giving up anything or having an advantage. It's literally just the same as producing it yourself. So, the next question, which of these reasons explain why the demand curve slopes downwards? So, looking at all the So basically, that's just kind of what it says. No one wants to buy things when prices are high, and that's why demand would be low. And when prices are low, people are going to want to buy things. Like, I don't know, if like a Gucci purse was like $500, like the demand for that. Well, actually, Gucci's not a good example. People are just crazy. Anyways, like, I don't know, if Sprite suddenly made their cans of soda like $10, no one would buy it. Demand would be so low. But you know, a can of Sprite costs like $1. You know, demand would be high because everyone just wants a can of Sprite that's cheap. More profit producers can make, the more supply they'll make. That's not demand, that's supply. Demand low when prices are low, demand high when prices are high. That doesn't make sense. Opposite of the right answer. And consumers have certain taste and preference. I mean, yeah, there'll be certain taste and preference that has to do with like substitution effect and inferior goods, normal goods, and income effect, where if people are having more income, they'll be more likely to buy normal goods than inferior goods or substitute them with cheaper goods. But that all has to do with, again, the income effect and nothing to do with demand curve. So, next question. What happens in supply and demand when the supply and demand graph when taxes increase? So basically, taxes usually affect consumers and businesses. So, the reason being that an increase on specifically business taxes will cause businesses to supply less, and also just with demand, like if people are getting taxed more, the less likely they're going to buy goods, which, I mean, that could affect demand, but taxes specifically are towards businesses and stuff, which affects supply. Okay. Question 5. What would cause the point shift right in supply and demand graph? So point shifts will always be price increase. The other three options, consumers expect prices to increase, that's going to affect demand. That would lower demand, and that's not a point shift, that's a curve shift. Similar goods become more expensive, demand shift left. Number of buyers decrease. That would be a supply shift left also, because when there's less people buying, the less suppliers will want to supply. Price increase, again, that's the only thing in the supply and demand graph that will ever cause a point shift. Everything else will be a curve shift. Okay, 6th question. Which of the following would result in a surplus in the supply and demand graph? Because there's too much supply to meet that. So prices leads to quantity supply increase and quantity demand decrease. So basically, again, quantity supply is more than quantity demand. That's why. And yeah. Question 7. Which market actually affects the economy's GDP? So we have the factor market, the financial market, the resource market, the underground market. Factor market. Okay, so resource market actually has to do with what you call final goods. So in GDP, gross domestic production, that only counts final goods. Factor market kind of has everything in between, like the flour that's used to make your bread, but if the product of bread is the final good that's sold, that's the only thing that gets counted in the resource market and the GDP. If flour by itself is sold as the final good, then yeah, it's included in the GDP, but as like something that's used to make the final good, it doesn't get counted. Financial markets, that's more just like holds the money and stuff, investments. Since that's not really a good, that doesn't get included in the GDP. And underground markets, that's more like criminal activities, As you can imagine, those are, and because they're not actually legally trading things and using money, it doesn't get counted in the GDP, and it just goes uncounted. Oh, is the sound still bad? Hold up. I swear I muted it. Like, hold up. Where's the sound being terrible at? Oh, you know what? I have an idea. Just gonna lower that. Hopefully that helped it. That's a little awkward. We're 7 questions in, and the sound's being weird. Hopefully that fixed it. If it didn't, come attack me again. But I hope even with the overbearing sound, you can kind of follow along. 3 dots? What? Yeah, no, I hope I fixed it. If I didn't, this is awkward. Question 8. What are one of the limitations of GDP? So, basically, look at all the options. It would be intermediate. Thanks, Lila. But, as I was saying earlier, or if you can't hear me, that's a little awkward, but, intermediate goods used during the production process, they're not counted GDP because it's not the final goods sold. Business inventory, final products, measuring degree of excess capacity, final product. Money households actually have to spend after taxes are taken out. That's more just like income, disposable income, and that has to do with like consumer like power to buy and ableness to buy goods. So that's like consumer spending, really, but it's kind of like in there because it has to do with consumer spending, and GDP is consumer spending, investment spending, government spending, and exports minus imports. Yeah, I really hope my volume's down, but if it's not, here, let me try again. Anyways, okay, question 9. Hopefully you guys can hear me. How does inflation help people? So, basically, inflation can help people. I mean, I know inflation sounds like a scary thing, but basically, inflation, it makes money now worth less in the future, and I know that kind of sounds bad, but when you think about it, it's just basically means you have more spending power now than you would in the future, if that makes sense. Loaners / lenders are hurt because, like, in the future when they get money back, it's not as much as they originally loaned because it's worth less. They get less back. That's also why they put interest rates, which is like, I think Loanable Funds is like a whole thing in Unit 5. I think I outlined in there. But yeah, just like the general overview, they know that it's going to be worth less in the future, so that's why they put interest rates. But yeah, inflation helps people because you can spend more now than you can in the future if inflation keeps going up. Okay. Sorry for all the sound issues. kind of be like that sometimes, but hopefully it's kind of okay. So what happens during the recession period of the economy? So basically, during the recession period of the economy, real GDP decreases. Everything else, like planned inventories increasing, that helps GDP. Employment increasing, that's not recession, that's expansion period of the economy. Consumer spending increasing, that helps GDP, aka economic growth, so that's not recession again. Expansionary, when real GDP decreases, that's just showing that we're in a recession. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, ask any questions in the chat if you have them. Okay. Which of the following are aggregate demand but not gross demand? So that would be transfer payments. That being because it affects aggregate demand because it's government spending. That's how the government kind of spends its money. Transfer payments are basically like government help that doesn't make any profit. So like Medicare, that's a transfer payment. Government uses their spending on that program, but it doesn't create them any profit. So if it's not making you profit, that's why it would be, if it's not making you profit, that's wouldn't be included in GDP because you're not making anything, but also you're spending a lot but not making anything. Again, just not GDP because you're not creating profit. It affects aggregate demand though because again, it's government spending. SRAS curve, right? Okay, so a new machine that is created to make goods quicker, that would shift the short-run aggregate supply curve, right? Because you can make more supply quicker because new technology that always shifts short-run aggregate supply, right? Taxes on business, realize I put that twice. Anyways, taxes on businesses. That would shift it left because if there's more taxes on businesses, the less they'll be able to supply because it costs more to create supply. When a forest fire occurs, there'll also be less supply because like it influences the cost of goods. So like if you use a lot of wood in your good, it's gonna cost more to get wood. Also there'll be less of it. So that's why it would shift left. All has to do with supply. Okay. Which of the following shows an inflationary gap? So, sorry. So this shows inflationary gap because you can see that the output the economy actually is in is past full employment, so like possible full employment. So if you're operating past full employment, you're in inflationary. Over here, this is recessionary gap because you're producing less than actual full employment. You're not using your resources efficiently, I guess. so basically when expansionary policy is in place, that affects so expansionary policy can be fiscal and monetary policies, and that basically just shifts aggregate demand right. And when aggregate demand shifts right on the ASAD graph, price level will increase. Has nothing to do with economic growth because that has to do with the long run supply curve. And when output decreases, that's contractionary and lower tax savings. Yeah, that just doesn't affect, that's not effective expansionary policy. Okay, hopefully halfway through the stream we got it good. How do automatic stabilizer work during a recession period? So basically it would be welfare collection increase and unemployment increases because, so let's look at the wrong answers first. Employment won't increase with decreased tax. Taxes don't affect employment, same thing with unemployment. It's not so it's welfare collection increase and unemployment increases because you only collect welfare if you're unemployed. You wouldn't collect welfare if you were employed. So obviously automatic stabilizers, you collect welfare if you're unemployed. Okay, cool. Anyways. So which of the following has an inverse relationship? Bond prices and interest rates. Bond prices won't affect employment. Bond prices are the loanable fund, wouldn't have anything to do with employment. Bond price and GDP, I guess that's kind of a stretch. If you can make that kind of connection. Same thing with bond prices and loanable funds. Like, yes, they kind of have to do with those things, like economic growth and stuff like that. But when you're analyzing the economy, you want to look at things, all things equal. You don't want to make those like far connections where this thing will lead all the way here. You just have to look directly at what does one thing do to another, and that's bond prices and interest rates. So when bond prices are low, interest rates are high, because when interest rates are high, there's a higher return. So people who make the bond prices want to make them look appealing to invest in, so that when people purchase it, they have a high rate of return. High bond prices means low interest rates because it's not very appealing to invest in bonds with a low interest rate. So that's why they just keep the prices high so they can get some more profit out of it. What is the function of having a standard value? Standard of value has to do with counting. So, for example, like, let's say you look at a fridge, and most fridges, let's just say they're $500. That's a standard of value saying that a fridge equals $500. And that's how you kind of like count things. Like if I had like 3 fridges, that's $1,500. That's counting with the standard of value. The other things has to do with different functions of money, like unit of account can be for saving and spending. Well, no. Yeah, they just have different functions. You can check those in my notes again. Link in bio. Yeah, link in description. Again, you can comment if you have any questions, otherwise just keep typing. What is the required reserve ratio? Simple math. Kind of fortunate the AP exam doesn't give us calculators. But anyways, so if you zoom in, I know it's kind of small, but required reserves are 40,000 and checkable deposits are 200,000. So you put 40,000 over 200,000 and you get 0.2. Make that percent 20%. That's just the equation to figure out required reserve ratios. Required reserve ratios are just basically when you send in like a deposit, there's a certain percent the bank is required to keep so that money can keep circulating the banks. If they didn't have a required reserve ratio, you wouldn't be able to lend out money. Like there would be $0 in the bank for banks to lend out. That's why there's a required reserve. What does the vertical line on the money market graph represent? Monetary base. There's three types of money when you're measuring those finite monies. So monetary base is just like the base of money, kind of just what it says. M1 and M2 has to do with like the money supply and circulation. Monetary base is just like what's in the vaults. So that's why it's the base, because it's basic what the banks have. What are contractionary monetary policies? These can be hard to remember. I'm gonna be honest, I had to write them like 10 million times before I understood them. So contractionary monetary policies are gonna shift aggregate demand left, lower it. So that's selling securities because it lowers money supply. Oh, monetary policy also has to do with money supply. Raise discount rates because then banks are less likely to like borrow and stuff from the money supply because it has a higher discount rate. It costs more to borrow from the money supply, and raise reserve requirements because people are more likely to save when you raise those than borrow and spend. So you're kind of stopping the circulation of money, not stopping, but just decreasing the circulation of money and letting things like save up and let the economy build its finances back together so it can go back to full employment. Yeah. What will change the demand for loanable funds? So that's pretty simple. Loanable funds. Again, you can check my notes for more in-depth kind of review over them. Not review, but like notes on them. But demand of loanable funds is changed by the borrowing of business, consumers, and governments because nothing else is going to cause the demand to go up. The demand only goes up if people are actively borrowing from the loanable funds, if that makes sense. Just gonna keep checking if my sound is okay. Again, call me out in the chat. I really hope this is fine. What would cause an increase in output, employment, and price level? So this has to do with expansionary policies of both fiscal and monetary. So lowering taxes is a fiscal policy, and lowering taxes will cause consumers to spend more, therefore making more output, employment, price level, making it increase, because increase in consumer spending with lowering taxes. Purchasing securities, basically that's the government's way, or the feds, because the feds control money supply. The federal bank hasn't the feds. When they purchase securities, they're putting more into the money supply, which again build up the finances and increase aggregate demand. With those, everything else like raising taxes, lowering discount rates, contractionary fiscal policy, lowering discount rate would be a expansionary monetary policy. This is a contractionary fiscal policy, this is a expansionary monetary policy, and then this is a expansionary fiscal policy, and a contractionary monetary policy. It's hard to remember those off the top of your head, so again, just a lot of memorization with macroeconomics and what it leads to. What would change PY in the quantity theory of money? So the quantum theory of money is mv equals py, so money supply and velocity equals GDP. Basically, that's what py is. P is average price level, and y is real GDP. Put those together, that's just basically GDP. Consumer spending is the only thing that affects, well, out of all these options, affects GDP. The other things, they all affect MV, money supply and velocity. Again, money supply, velocity, monetary policy has to do with money supply, so that's why it's on the MV side and not GDP. 24, what is the correct budget deficit crowding out graph? These are really small if you look at it. I don't know if that helped, but it would be this one. So budget deficit in a crowding out is basically when the government borrows money to pay for expansionary policies because they need to get that money from somewhere if they want to spend money into the economy. So in the loanable funds graph, they would be borrowing from the loanable funds, which increases demand because they're borrowing. Yeah. 25, what would cause the economy to grow? So business tax cuts, again, they'll become more productive because it costs less money to create goods and services. That's very simple. Price of resources increasing. That would be like lowering economic growth. Increase in business taxes, again, lowering because it costs more to create stuff, and lowering productivity. That causes the economy to not grow because you're not being productive with your resources. Okay, what is the financial account? So the financial account has to do with bond stocks, like financial assets, as it says. So there's two accounts. You always want to make sure they equal 0 in the economy, or else it moves towards deficit or surplus, depending on, you know, how it balances out. But anyways, merchandise goods, current account because it's goods. Services, current account because it's goods and services. Transfer payments are also goods and services because it's a service that the government gives out to other people. Stocks are the only financial assets on this options, but also like bonds and stuff, because you can't physically like carry stocks. I mean, like stock certificates, whatever, but like it's not a good and service. That's why it's in the financial account. Effects of the current account exchange rates of $1 US equals 0.9 pesos, change to 75 cents US to 0.9 pesos. Current account stays the same because this has nothing to do with current account. Again, current account has to do with goods and services. Financial accounts, it has to do with those financial assets and stuff. So appreciation, depreciation of goods, which can be found in Unit 6 notes, has to do with the financial assets because that directly affects like the cost of stocks and bonds and stuff like that. Yeah, so it doesn't affect the current account. What would decrease the demand of the US dollar? So basically, if US goods become more expensive, less people are going to want to invest in US goods because they're too expensive. They would go to foreign sources for goods and services and stuff like that. And yeah, more exports, that increases demand. Less imports means you're exporting more, increased demand, and foreign goods become more expensive, then you would go to the US, so increased demand. Which graph shows appreciation of currency? Pretty simple. It's this one, because as you can see, if you look closer, the second price level with the shift, that's appreciation of currency because the price level goes up. Over here is depreciation because the price level is going down. And the last question, how does capital inflow affect the US foreign exchange market? That's what Forex is. The supply of US currency increases because what happens? Sorry. Basically, like, if there's inflow, there's more capital coming in, which increases US currency supply. Yeah, that's just how it works. Again, use my Unit 6 notes if you want more in-depth explanation of it, but that's how it is simplified. So that was it. Hope you enjoyed. We also have an FRQ. Ignore that. It's pretty quick and simple. Usually you have like, I think my teacher gave me 12 minutes to answer FRQs. So if you want to look at this one, assume an economy is operating at full employment. Draw the correctly labeled aggregate demand and aggregate supply and show the following. So you want to show all these. Pretty simple. Let me just make a space for that. You're gonna have to ignore my terrible drawing. I swear it's better like on paper, but you know, online doesn't really work. So basically, you're gonna show this graph. Okay. You're going to have to ignore my terrible writing. It's better on my notes, but there's quantity and then here's price level. So what you always want to do first is you want to show the full employment, which that'll just be like in the middle. Then because it's above employment, you're in inflationary gap, so it'll be on the right. It says to label the current, like what it is right now. So this would be YE, PLE. So it's above what it would normally be because it's operating above full employment. And yeah, that's kind of how you label that. Oh, and you also, so this would be aggregate demand. Ignore my bad drawing. You know what? That's gonna annoy me. And then this would be aggregate supply. So how to fix that is you would need a contractionary fiscal policy. So fiscal policies are just either changes in taxes or government spending, so like decreasing government spending. An increase in taxes would also be a contractionary fiscal policy. So when you do that, you decrease aggregate demand. So again, let's do this quantity. So this would be full employment. Draw the graph how you drew it earlier. AS, AD. So this is YF. Wow. And then this is PL. So how it is would be P1, and then this would be Q1. But because you decrease aggregate demand with that contractionary fiscal policy, it would be AD2, and then this would be the first one, obviously. And then the price level is now down here. I'm really good at drawing, trust me. And yeah, and then this would be Q2. And that's just kind of how you show it. If that was a little too fast, you can always join our Discord in the link below to get like a more in-depth explanation from me, or just like, yeah, there's always other videos too, but hopefully you can get the help from me because I'm always available. But yeah, I hope this live stream kind of helped clarify some macroeconomic concepts to you. If you need more help, make sure to check out our website and go to our Discord. And I hope this was fun. Okay, thank you.